Welcome to the Map It Forward podcast, everybody. As you know, I'm Lisa Farr, and today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by our assertiveness training workshop for the hospitality industry that's coming up this week, September the 21st, at UTS Business School. Yep. Brought to you by Map It Forward and Collective Roasting Solutions. Today I have Nawar Adra from Collective Roasting Solutions. He's the owner of Collective Roasting Solutions, and I have Shane van Laar from, am I saying that right?
Yeah, you're saying it right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
From Collective Roasting Solutions as well. And we want to have a conversation about assertiveness and what it is and why we think that it's important for the hospitality industry. Particularly for me, we're all keenly interested in bringing this training to the coffee industry. And so today we're having a conversation about, the applications of assertiveness and what that could mean and why we care. Because for me in particular, I think that there's a misunderstanding of why assertiveness training is important and what it is and what it could be. So why do you, Nawar, why do you think that we need assertiveness?
Well, I think starting a business from four years ago, I would, if you ask me what does it mean, I wouldn't know the word.
Oh, really?
So technically, I wouldn't really understand. Well,
because it's misunderstood,
well.
Right?
Yes. So for me, I just build it up through my experience as a business owner, working with too many different culture, too many different backgrounds as well, from work or ethnic backgrounds, and it's just recently where we started at least putting some element of assertiveness into the business. In a way, what I mean by,
was that deliberate? Did you think about it, or was it like out of necessity? Did something go wrong and you're like, well, shit, we have to do something about it?
I think in both ways.
That's cool.
It is out of necessity because, assertiveness does help you to sit with your staff or whoever work with you and do some kind of review and say, what did you guys feel working in this company? What do you think we should do better? How do we make it a much better assertive place for you, so you can say what you think it is without actually going into an aggression or being passive about it. And I think me and Shane, we had a really good discussion about that, even with the reviews that we went through together as
the
an
reviews of
employment reviews and all that, which is part of what assertiveness is.
Well, giving a fuck is important.
Yes.
It's a part of, as a leader, it's a part of, if you're not receptive to hearing what other people think, what other people want to experience about you, you can't understand their boundaries, right? And boundaries are an important part of assertiveness. When Jamie came to our conference that we did last year and he spoke about this, there was a lot of people who were very surprised by this idea that assertiveness isn't aggression. You know what I mean? And then he started introducing words like boundaries and things like that, and a lot of people were quite kerfuffled by that. And so to hear you say, you needed to hear what people, part of listening is a part of assertiveness.
Yeah, exactly. So it was very significant, and it did change a lot. Even the work environment shifted after we did that, I guess. It did help us to understand each other more. It did help us to know that, you're not perfect as a human as well. You're still human, even if you're a leader.
You're not perfect, bro.
No, I'm not. And
hard to believe. Yeah.
I know, right?
You make a pretty perfect coffee, I've got to tell you. What are we drinking?
We're drinking Steady.
It's the Steady State.
Yeah, from America.
The Crystalina.
Was
Cheers
the gift,
to Elliot.
Was a Colombian, I guess. And it really energized the place again, because now we know how to talk to each other. We know how to be assertive and not to be passive or use the aggression. So it really helped. So it was both, was a necessity When I first started, I didn't know what it is. I was just listening and trying to be better, but I would have done a few mistakes that could have led to a bigger misunderstanding, would have led to people leaving us. Those mistakes, but hopefully it wasn't that big. But if I heard about it earlier, I think I would have been in a much better position as a communicator, as a business owner, as a leader, or even as an employee, or understand normal people, or even taking business deals, or getting people on board or off board, or getting a new client, or tell them, this is how we would like to run the warehouse. Are you okay with it? So it would have helped a lot if we had it from the beginning. Then bloody 3.5 years later, you went with a culture, and now you have to start fixing it, which is a lot harder.
That's so interesting.
To fix things than it is to start. You can't start super well. Like you need chaos. Chaos will always be around. But later on, fixing it is kind of, because then you start creating resistance. The culture has shifted. So yeah, it is a very, very important subject that a lot of people don't even know how important it is.
I think that what we found with presenting this to the community here is that people are confused by what we mean by assertiveness training.
And also the word is kind of heavy, like.
Yeah, somebody actually just said that to me. Shout out to James. James Danaskos is going to be on the podcast tomorrow. And he was saying to me, you need to have a different word than assertiveness to talk about this. And I said, Nawar said the same thing to me. And I think Jamie and I spoke about it. Like, there is no other word than assertiveness for assertiveness training.
Yeah, it's the perfect word, but I think it's because it's often misunderstood.
And tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, I think, I've been in the hospitality industry for 16 years.
Yeah.
And I would say that, I've worked in kitchens, I've worked in bars, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked pretty much every facet of hospitality. And I never really knew what it was. I never knew how to implement it. I was always kind of very reserved, in my opinion, because everyone above me was above me.
Yeah.
So I always found it really difficult to voice my opinions, voice my concerns for the workplace. And I would often see other people being bullied in a similar manner, and they didn't have the ability or the tools to kind of come forward with those difficulties. So assertiveness for me, it was always really a loaded word. It was always put on the same level as aggression.
That's what I was just about to ask you. Do you think when people hear the word assertive, they think aggressive?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you?
In between, but yes, most likely.
Mostly, like if someone's being assertive, they're like gonna grow some balls and actually say what they want to say, and not worry about. Like, they're gonna be strong. Yeah. I get it. I remember go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, just with assertiveness, I think a lot of people see it as coming out with like, hey, this is my stance, this is where I stand, and I don't care about your opinion.
Yeah.
But it's actually the opposite. It is, as you said, it's a skill of listening as well. It's taking other people's opinions, other people's personal views, and just finding balance between both of them.
Yeah. So I have been receiving personal assertiveness training, one-on-one with Jamie for a year. More. Like, I've known him for decades. But in particular, the reason we came about this is because he and I have really long conversations every week, and undoubtedly in there's like something about boundaries, or something about being passive, or something about not communicating what I want to somebody in my life. And I realized that this is something that continuously happens throughout our industry. And there's bullying that goes on, or there's people are too passive. Like, for me, there's two sides to it, right? There can be a bully, but on the other side of a bully, there's someone who's being passive. And so if the bully is being aggressive, the person on the receiving end of the bullying, if they're receiving it, is being passive. But both of those people need assertiveness training.
Yeah.
because the bully is communicating that way because they don't know how to be assertive, and the passive person is being railroaded because they don't know how to be assertive. And so I love that seesaw. Remember the seesaw that Jamie put up last year that was like, on one end of the seesaw is aggression and on the other end is passive, and assertiveness sits in the middle. And I've been bullied a lot in this industry. I've been physically abused in this industry. I had somebody throw me up against a fridge.
Yeah, wow.
And it was horrible. I've had people say the most disgusting things to me. And you don't look at me and think like, there's a woman that you can railroad. Like, you don't look at me and think, oh, she's a piece of cake. Like, I know that I come across with confidence, but it's not about that. The aggression that comes across isn't because someone's necessarily trying to overpower me. It's because they're frustrated for whatever reason, and the only way they know how to communicate is through being aggressive. They're feeling threatened, they're feeling whatever. And that happens a lot in our industry. I just got done talking to somebody else in a meeting earlier today, and they said to me, I struggle with the frustration that I have about stuff. And because I get frustrated, the way I communicate that is through aggression. And I don't know how to communicate it any other way. And I'm like, well, you need to come to this assertiveness training because, and I guess this is a question, do you guys think that that's something that seems to be apparent in our industry with leadership?
Yeah, you mean miscommunication and just not being able to...
And the aggression.
The aggression. Yeah, I think it's really common in our industry. I think it's grossly common. I find it in all places, kitchen, cafe owners, all the way top to bottom. Some people would possibly misinterpret it as like an abuse of power, but I think it is that they just don't know how to either handle stress, handle, managing staff, frustrations and things like that. And I think it comes down to just lack of communication. And I think it does lead to what we experience in the hospitality industry, which is a high staff turnover rate. A lot of people are frustrated, especially younger people in the industry who don't know how to navigate these situations, and they think that this is the norm. And to some extent, we have created this norm in the industry. You just have to look at shows like, Hell's Kitchen and things like that to kind of see this, the public opinion or view of our industry. It's very extreme.
Oh, yeah. And it seems to be made sexy to treat people like that.
Yeah.
Like when Gordon Ramsay gets on TV and starts talking shit to people like that, like it's popular TV, right? And so when that happens, people think this is the way the kitchens are supposed to be. Or if I want to be famous, if I want to be a celebrity chef, I've got to treat everyone like an asshole.
Yeah. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. And
Boom!
yeah, terrible.
Well done.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think it's a lack of education about
it,
really. It's really big. And a lot of business owners that it's not about not only not handling stress, is not understanding the concept of power, right?
Whoa, that's massive.
Right, so because power and assertiveness, they're very related, right? How do you use
that's
power,
delicious.
and what kind of power you need to use, and at what point, with who?
Never thought about this.
So this is really, really important. Is the power relationship with being assertive and know what level you're in and how much damage you can do. Are you gonna use coercive power, or you're gonna use a let loose style power? Where learning and understanding the dynamics of your workplace, it's really important. And that being assertive at that point, it could lead to a much healthier work environment than anything else.
So what I see a lot with this power dynamic is that people get a taste of that power for the first time, and it like awakens like the demon. That's the thing. I'm the boss. You'll do what I fucking say. Don't question me. Blah blah blah. And do you think that part of it is that if we could show people how to connect that power with assertiveness, they could take that power in a more positive direction and
100%.
not have it right.
You need to have some kind of even a workshop about power and how it works. However, having said that, understanding the cultures that you're dealing with, because some cultures see assertiveness as being weak or seeing you know what I mean?
Because this is your background, cultural studies.
Yeah, some cultures want like, if you're not aggressive enough.
Our culture's like that.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Arab culture is big like that.
It's really tricky.
If you're going to be a man, you've got to be aggressive
but I think assertive is about knowing how to use the power and the knowledge you have and put in the right words so you can get the message across. That's pretty much it.
Where does the relationship between, because this power thing that you've brought up, the first time I've thought about it, and I might see if Jamie can introduce and part of the, like, talk about it on the weekend, but where do you add the word respect into the dynamic of power, assertiveness, and respect? Like, where do you see that relationship? How important is that relationship?
Well, respect has to be acknowledged from the start, I guess.
You think it's a part of assertiveness?
Yeah, well, it's me earning Shane respect and Shane earning my respect as well, right? Like we will have no doubt that we can achieve it, but we have to respect each other and earn it at the same time. So
let me put it this way. So when you look at someone who's aggressive and you look at someone who's passive, right? People tend to formulate how they respect somebody, whether they're an employer or an employee, based on the way that they're either aggressive or passive. So Nawar and I come from a culture where if you're aggressive, you're commanding respect. You don't earn somebody's respect, but you'll get their respect because you're commanding their respect.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're passive, you're seen to be weak. And so you won't get respect. Can you correct me if I'm wrong here? I wonder if the idea, like, where does respect sit? And I've not thought about this, but I wonder where respect sits in the dynamic of not being aggressive and not being passive, but being assertive. I wonder if people look at leaders like that and naturally, instinctively, just respect them more because of the way. Yeah, I mean, do you guys have an opinion on that? Have you thought about it?
So you mean, do people get respect purely because of how they communicate?
Well, because
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I'm trying to really grasp it because it is quite a complex question.
Respect.
So,
for me, sorry.
So I was taught to respect people, and this wasn't a deliberate thing. It was done through conditioning, right? And it flowed on into my workspace. So I respected people who were stronger than me, and people who were more aggressive than me. I was conditioned, and I think society is taught to either fear them, and in a weird way that fear becomes a form of respect.
Respect, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's called fear.
Right.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
I don't think there is the word respect maybe is not the right word, because I think
that's fair.
I think it's fear. It's afraid of the other person's power.
But people think that they get respect.
People, I think there's a deceiving part where they think, hey, I've got the power, respect me. Yes, definitely. Yeah. I agree.
Like in Hell's Kitchen, right? Like Gordon Ramsay, people are terrified of him, and there's a perception in the world that he's a respected chef because of how he commands respect in a kitchen through aggression.
To some degree, I'd agree with that, but
look, we see through it because we're seeking authentic relationships, and right. But do you guys see what I'm saying? Like, I think that we have this illusion of respect because of aggression.
Yeah. I think
maybe I'm reading it the wrong way, but like I look at those kinds of situations and see if only that person treated people more fairly, they'd probably get a more authentic version of respect.
Yeah. I think assertiveness like grants everyone respect in the sense that if someone who is passive does learn assertiveness, then through them being assertive and not accepting that bullying nature that exists, or from that person who is aggressive, then they do get the respect of that aggressive person. So,
Do you think,
for example, I think to some extent, I think it does balance it out. It obviously
interesting.
takes the aggressive person to have an accepting personality. But say if someone's being bullied, and assertiveness doesn't mean being direct. You don't have to go directly to the aggressive or the aggressor. But if you're assertive enough to find a median, or find a mediator in that situation, like HR or your employer.
HR are usually fucking useless.
Yeah, I know. Look, I've worked in hotels with hundreds of employees, and I know how.
HR are fucking useless. Sorry, Siobhan.
Who's higher on the payroll? Okay, well, I'll choose that person's
that's
side.
the person's going to decide whether I keep a job or not.
But if you have been bullied, and then you get that assertiveness, and then you use that towards, hey, I'm not going to stand for this. This is violating my human rights. And you make that conversation happen, the aggressor is usually more willing to back down from that point forward. So when you confront
a bully, you mean?
Yeah. So I think respect is, it depends on the power dynamic you're talking about. I mean, the way I see it is if the employer grants everyone equal respect, and that's through listening to them, hearing their opinions on the business or on the relationship, on the culture within the workplace, then I feel like everyone else absorbs that into the culture and starts to respect everyone equally. It has to start at the top. I mean, the employer has to respect
They
people.
set the tone, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Respect
are
is
you
value.
conscious of that in your workplace?
Yeah, of course, 100%. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a little bit different, I guess, because through my studies, obviously, for me, I always look at myself. I need to earn their respect. Once I earn their
Are you sure you're an Arab, bro?
Yeah, Lebanese,
Well,
half Syrian.
I just said the better half. Let's be clear on that. But it's not culturally something that we align with, right?
Yes. No, I mean, there will be from a mainstream culture. Yes, we're not, but there is all these little pockets within a culture where you want to come from this spot. But I guess being a millennium or being a different generation, or we were grown up with the internet, we grown up with seeing the world around us, so we kind of evolved differently than others, and being here and being an employee, being a barista for 15 years since I've been here, working in the industry, did convenience stores and stuff. I didn't work for big companies, but I did work for small ones. And having a lot of culture diversity and be open to what's going on around me, it made me understand that, behavior and how you should be and how, because we don't work for me, nobody work for me, we work for the company.
Yep.
Right,
approach my company the same way.
That's the way we approach. That's the way I don't own anything. We all own it, kind of approach. So,
do you feel that?
Yeah, I do. I think that's a really important point about assertiveness. Is that if you're willing to hear people and their input on your business and on creating that culture as a team, then they feel a personal connection. Yeah. If someone who is usually timid and sits in the back and doesn't have a voice, they feel disconnected. And I think that's really toxic to the environment. So yeah, I think in the approach that Noah has had in the business, definitely in the last year or so, with the way the culture's really taken a forefront in the business and how the future of it is going to be. It's super important. Everyone needs to be heard.
Did that shift come from?
Well, some
last
of it,
year?
map it forward and building the culture and what we spoke about, 100%.
It sounds like it's been pretty profound. Like, he
was
a leader, changing.
Was very amazing, and I think it really opened up, because sometimes you just in your zone.
I know what you mean.
You're just doing things. You think you're doing an amazing job. It takes you at least 4 or 5 years to put your head up till somebody come and, okay, now we're gonna look at the business. What's going on in here?
Yeah.
So at least this one is fast tracked. That 5 years to 3 years, right? So awesome. Which is good, and you live in a new era. You need to understand there is changes. that you need to take. You need to be responsive to the changes in the market and flexible. So you need to be dynamic, right? And also, get the right people on board and listen to what they have to say and be open about it. So the word assertive is definitely a core thing that we are building, and we want to build a very healthy workspace where you come and feeling safe. I think that's what assertiveness at the end of the day, just give you that safety and you belong, and there is certainty around you. There is people always there to help you when you need it because you can speak up. Right? And from this culture, communication comes as a great part of it, right? So we always have an open door policy. And what does that mean is if there is a conflict, we talk about it. We don't let it sit there. So
have you found that people are receptive to that? Because usually when I hear that is the policy in a workplace, people think, well, they don't really mean it. Leadership doesn't really mean it. Has your team embraced that?
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, yeah.
Have you guys embraced it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen a flow-on effect. So since we had a big team sit down and a discussion about assertiveness and open channels of communication.
This is awesome. You really did that?
Yeah, we did. And also with the individual,
one-on-one
assessments, employee assessments. We all kind of took it on board, and I think it's a flow-on effect. It has to start from the top and go down as with anything.
Look at us.
So yeah, we've started sitting down with each other as employees one-on-one and having discussions about these things. Are there any concerns that you have? Like, how do you feel your job role's going? Is things moving at too fast of a pace, or do you feel like you need more support in a certain area? And I think Nawar's really encapsulated that work environment really well. He's created that culture.
And do you find it inspiring and refreshing? Well, do you find it inspiring or refreshing or both to work for someone who gives a fuck about the soft skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm used to working in places where, you're just a cog in the machine. Places with hundreds of employees where you're often overlooked, your voice isn't heard. And it's really difficult because in those kind of environments, you kind of work within your team, which is, 10 to 20 people, but there's 300 people working in the same building in the company, and you leave after 5 years and you don't even know the name of the person working next to you, So yeah, working in a small knit environment where everyone's voice is heard equally is really important. I think it's undervalued by a lot of people. I think there's a huge disconnect between a lot of business owners and their employees, and they don't realize how much impact they have on that person's day-to-day life. And I think that's where mental health and assertiveness really does connect. Assertiveness and mental health go hand in hand, because if you don't have the power or the ability or the support to speak your mind or how you're feeling emotionally, then that can lead to a lot of mental detriment and a lot of ill effects that will come of that. A lot of depression or a lot of stress related illnesses. If you feel like things are overwhelming and there's no one you can speak to, what do?
There seems. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, just to add to it, is that we're still in the infancy of it. Like, we're still learning about it. It's not like it's perfectly running through the hills, right? So we still have mountains and rocks.
The hills are alive.
Exactly, right? But you need to start somewhere, and you need to experiment, and you need to allow yourself to go through this change, and minimize as much resistance from your internal to an urge to say, no, I don't want to do this. Maybe it's not the right
hard.
thing.
It's hard fucking work to actually.
I've got once a review, but that was
from an employee.
Yeah, and I was looking at it. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Do I get angry or I actually ask for this?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I ask for this, then I shouldn't be angry. I should just absorb it.
So if you ask for the feedback.
Yeah, and the feedback was something completely different. Do I get angry or do I let it Or it's not I let it go. No, you don't let it go. But do you accept it and you work towards fixing it?
Or do you just
Or you
ignore
just
it
get angry?
Yeah.
I'm in my bubble.
That's hard as a leader, right? Well, it's hard as an employee to be like, okay, so how much does this person really want to hear?
Am I going to be fired?
And am I going to be fired? Is it going to be received? And there's such a strength in looking at a leader who can receive your truth
Yeah.
and not punish you for it when the truth that they're receiving isn't what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's hard to receive it as a leader, but it's also hard to give it, because it's trust. Like, you've got to trust that if this is going to land with my leader,
We will know exactly who is.
well, not just that, it's like, is it going to land in a way that's not going to get me fired and not going to get pushback? Like, is this leader going to then turn around and treat me differently because I was honest about the way that I feel about them?
Yeah. Which is really rare. I mean, you don't find many, small business owners out there understanding this concept, right? For them, it's the daily, day-to-day.
You push the boundaries of new.
Yeah, just to be honest, whatever we're doing today is not new. We're just trying to apply it properly. Like,
Tell me, what do you mean?
If that makes sense. It's not like we're going to Mars and we're not bringing something that is extraordinary outside the scope of work.
No.
We're just taking concept.
But you are taking the road less traveled.
Yes, exactly. That's the difference. Yes.
And I know of people in our industry who thought about taking this road and have consciously decided not to take this road because of how much, for a lot of reasons, but mostly because it's too hard. With the high staff turnovers that we have, how am I going to implement a culture that's based on assertiveness or based on hearing each other when no one's going to be around long enough to actually cultivate the culture that I want to build? My response to that is typically, but if you go to the trouble of building this, you won't have the staff turnover.
Exactly. And a lot of people undervalue culture. Or if you ask them, what's the culture of your workplace? They just won't.
They don't know.
They don't know. And culture becomes a huge thing. Like, it becomes, the reason why you employ certain people. It becomes less about skill.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, hospitality, you can teach people most of the skills.
But the barrier to entry is very low for that from a skill set perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing's not teachable.
Exactly. And if someone suits your culture, then, that's just invaluable, in my opinion.
Yeah. I go through the idea of when I'm setting the culture for someone who I onboard that's new, a part of that is explaining to people how we talk to each other. Because in my experience, people don't think that that's important. They assume that everyone talks like them. Does that make sense? And for me, I go to the process of saying, so we communicate assertively here, and it's an open, accepted environment for assertive communication. We don't focus on what you've done wrong. There is no doing anything wrong here. If something fails, if there's a mistake that's made, if something doesn't work out, we're solution-focused business. And then once we fixed it, so we go straight to communicating what happened, then the next step is to fixing it. And the focus after that is debriefing so that we can find out where the hole was that allowed that to happen in the first place.
Yeah.
People struggle with that.
Yeah.
People struggle with the idea that you're not going to get into trouble if you do something wrong. And I've made a decision as a leader that I don't want to have a workplace where people can get into trouble, because I don't think that that's functional. But it's tied back to assertiveness. It's this idea of, well, if I'm not going to get into trouble for something, I've removed that burden. It forces me to have to communicate clearly and fairly. It means I have to listen to people. It means I have to respect people's boundaries. I have to give a fuck where their boundaries are, and I have to know what my own boundaries are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my experience has been and I don't understand why. Maybe you guys can help me understand it. Unfortunately, my experience has been that is too much for people. People don't like to be in an environment, in my experience from the people that I'm trying to hire, people don't like the fact that they have to be accountable for themselves. People like the idea of it.
Yeah. I think people are generally just scared of change. I think that's what it comes down to. I think what you were saying about people communicating differently, that's it causes a lot of issues. I mean, let's be real. Everyone's from different cultures, different backgrounds, different home environments. We've experienced ourselves in our workplace where two people who are from different cultures, they have a discussion in their own way.
Yeah.
One person leaves frustrated, the other one leaves upset. And they both feel like, they both got nowhere through that communication. And it just takes getting them both to sit down together with someone and just going, okay, how can we better communicate? What went wrong? What were you really trying to communicate in the way that you were speaking, or in the message you were trying to convey? Because it just makes things really difficult. I think there does have to be some kind of standard to how do we communicate? How do we discuss ideas? Like, is there a time and place that we sit down? Is there a certain language that we use, body language? I think it takes people just being more aware of their body language, of their tone of voice, because miscommunication is rampant. I mean, look at emails, look at SMS.
Yeah. And we both, like all of us, live in two cultures that are both very multicultural. Me in the US, and having come from where you guys are here in Sydney, there's such a it's such a salad of different cultures. Do you find that is creating more tension, or contributing in a greater way to the complexity of how the workforce is unfolding?
I think it's the best thing ever. I think, I love diversity, and I love my team being from all over the world. And it's just the future. And I was saying to David this morning, having a diverse team and having a global vision, it's a great way where you want to start, because you've already learned how each culture works. So if you want to go anywhere, that one of your staff already from this specific
it's awesome
region,
right?
You've already know how to deal with the people, you already know what sort of language you're going to use, you already understand them. So if you have a smaller vision, then you stick with just locals, right? But if you have a bigger vision and you want champions, you must have a diversity of difference from not only our origin, right? We're not just background, or ethnicity, like female, male, gender,
sexual orientation.
Exactly, right? So you want the whole thing. We're not just talking about just from Thailand or from Japan or Lebanon or whatever, right? We're talking about the whole thing, put it into one, and learn how to work with them and learn about them.
What do you mean by that? Because I know that there are people who listen to this podcast that white is the way that they want to go, or Arab is the way they want to go, or just Japanese is the way they want to go, because they're operating, that's what their clientele want. What value does diversity add to your workplace and your business?
Uniqueness, open, hospitable, everyone welcome, everybody feels safe, everybody want to be part of it, everybody want to learn the other person's culture, curiosity. It builds so much. It's give you leaders, it's give you entrepreneurs, it's give you different mindset, and also the way you look into the market now, you have much wider vision of the people that you could target later on. You're not just restricted yourself to cute stuff because it works for Korean, right? You don't have to look at certain aesthetics that work for only the white person, which is really cool, rusty, or whatever they call it, style cafe. So
the rustic kind of cafe, the
I don't know,
the very trendy kind,
exactly.
Whatever the latest
trend.
Like
if you're it's like you go to a space, white, cool, Asian clients, right? But then next to it, we went there, right next to it, there's another one that is funky new,
Yeah.
80s kind of retro stuff.
Everything secondhand.
And they're all like, all the artists, all of it, right?
Wow.
All
Yeah.
these people with their different, like no one taking photo of the food. There was nobody doing this. To go there.
I have to tell you something that
It's-
happened today. So I'm in a cafe having a coffee this morning, and I'm in a meeting with someone, and the table next to me, this girl starts. I think she's going to put sugar into her coffee. Nothing wrong with that. She takes a spoon of sugar and she puts it on the saucer next to her coffee.
For a photo.
Well, see, I wasn't smart enough to get there.
No, he's a photographer.
So then
Sorry.
she takes another spoon and puts it
wouldn't
next
do
to
it.
her coffee, and then takes another spoon and put it next to her coffee. And I'm like, can she see that she's missing the cup? And she just kept doing this. And I said to the person I was having a meeting with, I'm like, is this something new in Australia? Like,
You just look at it and drink.
this is how you get your sweetness without actually
Zero
tasting
sugar.
it? What the fuck is going on? And he turned around and he's like, Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it so many times as someone working, behind the machine. People just come in, order like 8 dishes off the menu, lay it all on the plate on the table at the same time, take a photo, maybe take 1 or 2 bites, and then just leave it all. And I have to say, as someone who works in hospitality, that hurts.
Oh, fuck yeah.
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 We have to be assertive about it. Next time.
Well, I
I
wanted
guess.
to turn around and say to her, so this is interesting, right? I wanted to say to her, do you know that people actually, like people's hands actually go into making that sugar? And it's,
You know what? That was sorry to interrupt. There was an amazing video remember I was telling you about him, Milton Friedman,
yes.
right? He is
Sorry, for anyone who's listening, it is
He's an economist.
raining cats and dogs in Sydney at the
Yeah.
moment. I seem to have brought the opposite of the weather from San Diego, so that noise you can hear in the background is the rain that's hitting the warehouse roof. So I apologize about that.
yeah. So he was talking about nobody knows how to make a pencil,
All right.
right? Which is really cool because it is a pencil, but nobody knows how to make a pencil because all these different components that made that pencils are coming from all over the world. So there's no one, just
Yeah, you've
one
told me about this
person
before. This
know
is
how to
awesome.
make a pencil.
Yeah.
And I want to take this concept and put it what we're talking about right now is like nobody knows how to make sugar.
Sugar. Yeah, right.
Because it could be done from all over the world, so
But what I realized, like I was thinking about our assertiveness workshop when I wanted to say something to this girl about sugar.
yeah.
And I thought, wait, Lee. And I would normally not say something, but because I'm studying the coffee supply chain so heavily right now, all the commodities that I see people wasting, it like grates on me. And then I realized, if you point this out to her, are you being assertive or are you being aggressive? It
Assertive?
That just comes down to how you communicate.
Right, but it could be perceived, it could
Oh,
be
yeah.
received as aggressive. Like, who the fuck are you to tell me what I should be doing with my sugar? This is my sugar to do whatever I want with it.
Is
Do you know
it?
what I'm saying though? Like, this is where the idea of assertiveness, and this is why I'm excited about the training. Like, where's the line? When does assertive become aggressive? What part of it is my responsibility? What part of it is the other person's responsibility? This is the kind of thing where I'm really like, okay, co-workers, right? If I see a co-worker, and this I struggled with. Actually, I always struggled with this on the machine with Nawar.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. He was awesome most of the time.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty good.
You're very good.
Yeah.
No. So there are baristas that I've worked with that, Jesus, it's raining, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, buckets.
So there are baristas that I've worked with that, for example, if we're getting hammered, they'll just let channeled shots fly all the time.
Yeah.
And I'll say, like, I'll be in a position where I'm like, hey, so listen, I'll be on milk and I can see the shots channeling and I don't want to serve shit coffee to people. And so I'll say like, hey, let's just pull that one again. because it channeled and just assume. Like, I know they fucking saw that it channeled. And I'll be like, you didn't do this. I know you were looking at me and thinking, did I do this to you? Maybe you did it once or twice, but
No, I didn't. It's not even a naked handle. Anyway.
No, he didn't. And I told him my most fun. We used to have some fucking hilarious times, didn't we? We used to have lots of fun. But part of me was caught between, I've told this barista once, I've told this barista twice. I can see they're clearly, like now, just trying to get through the queue. There's 100 coffees in the queue and they just want to get through it. And they don't give a fuck what quality they're serving, but I care. Because this person's here as a weekend barista and I'm here all week. And I'm caught between my passiveness of
Let it go.
Should I let it go?
Slide it,
Or should I say something because it's my job to make sure, as the head barista, it's my job to make sure that the quality of the coffee is outstanding, especially as I'm getting paid top dollar to do it. And for me, that's like, where's the line? If somebody keeps ignoring your assertive communication, where does that turn into them receiving it as aggressive when I say to them, either stop channeling the shots or get the fuck out?
Yeah.
I think assertiveness in that sense, where the line is, I think it comes down to a lot of things, like the same as with any culture, it's individualistic.
Right.
So a lot of people, and this is why assertiveness often gets perceived as aggressiveness, because I think people have different definitions.
Right.
Or different, levels which they gauge it.
I think it's the culture of the cafe.
I was just about to ask
Yeah.
that.
Is it a true culture of amazing, or is it we are
Let's pretend.
amazing, but who cares?
Yeah, just get the fucking coffee out. Let's go.
That's the problem with Instagram a lot, because you only see the beautiful picture, right? What's going on in the kitchen, what's going on in the washing.
No one wants to see behind the curtain.
No one. I mean, even some places, like, jeez, man, this is really bad. Like, people walking in this building or this space, they're not really seeing stuff.
No.
It's amazing. I'm always amazed. But that internet and the picture in there is just not showing you the reality. And they are leader cafes. We're not talking about, somebody just open around the corner that nobody knows about, right?
No.
We were talking about big names. And I was really kind of like surprised. But the culture is what really mattered. For example, when we were working at Circa, we had a specific way how we gonna put the teaspoons and where it's gonna go on the saucer.
Before you make the coffee or afterwards?
When I put it on, and then I'll take the spoon.
Well, that's
that will have
service etiquette, right?
Specific, but that's the culture, right? We couldn't cross it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you couldn't do anything else. But they said this culture. I tried to kind of say, yeah, it's all right, just let it go.
Oh, gee,
But
that shocks me about you, bro.
But the culture it taught me that no, I shouldn't. I should be very, very careful. And also the way you place.
Did you really though?
Yeah, of course. It's all right. Like you come from a space where whatever works, and then you're coming for a space like, okay, all right, what do I do? How do you want?
IQ comes from fine dining, doesn't it?
Yeah, I could.
Yeah. I could. Sorry.
And Tony does. They come from a really specific mindset as well. But this is why we won, right?
Won what?
Best cafe in Sydney back then, because of their way of putting things into place.
Right.
And the same thing that could happen other places is once you set that culture, that we really don't compromise quality.
And that's culture, though, right? Like
Yeah,
it's,
100%.
It has to come from leadership. That
Yeah.
we're not pretending. When Campos was very good from that perspective when I was working
That's
there.
one of the strongest culture out there, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, back then, that there's good and bads to that, because you strive for excellence. But how do you strive for excellence and hold space for people who aren't moving at the same pace to achieve that excellence? Do you know what I'm saying?
But I mean, I'll be honest. Like, if you look at the birth of the culture in Campos, I think it wasn't an era where there was no cameras, there was no other things, and there was a lot of really rubbish cafes. Like literally, the cappuccino was still made.
Oh, bubble bath.
Bubble bath, right? So it was a completely different era. The industry has shifted the last 7 years dramatically now, where things has changed a lot, right?
Yeah.
So back then, that culture was the right culture to have.
Right.
If that makes sense, right?
Well, because it was driving a new standard.
Exactly, new standards, new things. So sometimes there is two type of change, right? There's two types. There's always two. There will be evolution and there will be revolution.
Right.
Right? So back then it could have looked like more revolution. Like this is it, we're gonna change the world. Boom. And then evolution is what we try to do later on by educating the consumer. Right? All we think about is education, educating. That's evolution because you're taking so much time, right? But if you want to revolve it, you can just stop what you're doing, scrap it.
And go a different way. Here's a question for you on that. When people don't fit into a culture and you have to move them along, that can be seen as being aggressive. And look, I want to expand on that for a second. Clearly the heavens don't want me to because it gets louder when I talk about this, but there's a movement in our culture right now. I don't mean the coffee industry culture, I mean it's societal culture. And I think I feel it a lot more over in the US, but this is happening in the coffee industry. You have movements like Coffee at Large. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Coffee at Large, but it's a movement that is employee focused, that is trying to get more fair work standards, I guess is the word, but they're not trying to get standards, but I hope you know what I mean, in the workplace for baristas.
Right.
And so, rights, okay. So there's an idea that there's a blanket way that a cafe should operate, a blanket culture that cafes should have, and you should be able to tweak that. For example, every place should be inclusive. Every place should be fair. Every place should be a safe space for you, no matter who you are or how you are. I don't disagree with those things, right? I think all of that is, not only is it reasonable, I think it should be the new standard.
I think
absolutely.
It's basic rights.
It's,
right.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? So.
But then what happens? Yeah, but we think that they're basic rights because we're people who care about this stuff. But we have to remember that there are a lot of people who just care about profits.
Yeah.
And they're not interested in creating places that are safe, places that are inclusive, places that give a fuck about their employees. We know many places that don't give any fucks about their employees.
Yeah.
Right? Now, then we have employees who think that if they don't fit the culture of a place, they shouldn't be fired because they don't fit the culture, because you're not treating me fairly. They see that as aggressive behaviour.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. I think it's a slippery slope.
Totally.
Because
Depends how you fire them.
well, yeah, if you want to fire them and you're right, didn't fit our culture,
See you
I
later.
mean, that could be seen as unfair dismissal.
Right, but let's say that at the heart of it is the fundamental reason that the person is getting fired,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I think that that's valid.
I think it's valid as well, absolutely.
I think that if you're not fitting into a culture, you should go and find somewhere where you do fit into the culture, because you're going to be happier there, you're going to thrive there,
Yeah.
and you're going to there's going to be less conflict where you're currently at.
Yeah.
The best part is when you have a culture who doesn't fit in it will feel it the next day and they will walk away themselves.
But they don't. That's where the conflict starts to happen, right?
Yeah. I've seen it.
Yeah,
people working
many
6
times.
months to a year. Some people working 5 years.
But I've done
at
it.
a company, and
Go on.
what they end up doing, especially in larger companies, is they start to create their own little micro culture.
Yeah.
In whatever department they're working in, whatever, and it can be really toxic to the whole industry, or whole company, I should say. So yeah, no, it absolutely happens. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's places that I've worked and it was clear to me that it was an aggressive environment. And I'm not an aggressive person. especially back then, I was much more passive than I am now. And I kept thinking, it's going to change. It's going to change. Like, sure, like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Why do people keep treating me this way? And what I should have done was go and find a different culture to work in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because for me, it was like, but I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not being aggressive. I'm not being this. I'm not being that. I'm the like mentally healthy one here. These people. Whereas what I should have realized is, well, the reason you get thrown up against a fridge is not because you're working with people who are mentally stable and who have a healthy outlook on life. The boss is the one that threw me up against a fridge. What kind of people are you expecting he's going to hire if...
Yeah. Well, people want their own
their
own mentalities or whatever to be supported. So they're gonna hire people with the same, that align with them.
Yeah.
And support their behavior.
Yeah.
So, and especially being the individual who doesn't fit that culture, and though you may be in the right, it takes more than one person to change a workplace culture.
Totally.
Especially if you're not the manager. I mean, yeah, that's just an impossible situation, basically.
Well, it comes down to the communication channel as well. Like if they can come together and say, look, we're not happy because 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know. It's a really tough one.
It is a tough one, but that's why I want to have the conversation about it.
I think as an employee, you should just walk away from it because it's toxic
I did
anyway.
many times.
Yes. Yeah.
From an employer, I think you're gonna be in trouble. How long you're gonna do it for?
Well, I wonder if you're going to be in trouble for only as long as...
It's just not gonna last anymore. That's it.
Do you think?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of voices out there now. You know, it's changed a lot. You know, there's more you hear on the news, a lot about, you know, one of the celebrity chefs not paying their staff now. So there's a lot more going on out there that is limiting businesses.
I often say to people that reach out to me about consultation, and they're like, so like I'm interested in becoming like well known in the coffee industry, and how do I do that? And I never want to take on those jobs. I never do take on those jobs. But the only thing I say to them is be very prepared that if you're going to go down this path, you can never fuck up ever.
Yeah.
You can, if you fuck up once, your whole career is destroyed.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do this, you better base your brand on integrity and live up to that standard, because people are looking to shoot you down now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, they don't really forgive you that easily either. So
No.
yeah, it's a fine line, I guess, how you want to treat that scenario. And I know it happens a lot, especially in the hospitality in a lot of places, because some international students, they just want the money, right?
Right.
They don't really understand. He's the boss. Tell me, boss. What do you want me to do, boss? Okay, boss. Right?
Do you find that those people eventually understand the culture, or they care about the culture?
They will understand it when they start losing a lot of money and a lot of people don't work for them and they close down. And this is the beautiful thing of what's going to happen the next few years. I think we're going to have only the strong ones surviving in the industry as well. Like, you're going to find that it's going to happen.
Especially with the introduction of automation.
Automation, recession. Don't worry about automation. I think recession itself and us not having a growth, right? So everywhere you go, it's just plateauing, a little bit down, a little bit up, a little bit. So it's really a plateau at the moment. So it's all about maintain the people that you have. So you're gonna see a lot of coffee shops starting closing down. The one they're gonna start closing down. Unfortunately, I don't want the good one to close down, right?
Right.
But the bad one, they're having a lot of problem with staff turnovers, right? They can't get staff. What's going on? Why there's nobody want to work for me? These are the ones they're gonna realize.
Is it happening?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 100%. You know, it is. It's a trigger effect. You know, so if you walk around lease,
Yeah,
right?
full lease everywhere.
At the moment, it's a bad time to sell any cafe because there's so many on the market.
Yeah, wow.
Right? So it tells you there's already... There is something new you have to do now. You have to be really good at what you're doing.
Do you think that a part of the new is that you have to be a place that people want to work at?
Yeah, 100%, of course.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you don't have
Because
that.
it's different.
Absolutely. I think what's happened in the industry, especially with like, a lot of latte artists and a lot of like, Top Gun baristas and hospitality wide, there's a lot of huge professionals
Celebrity
who take
chefs and
a lot of people taking it seriously as a career now. I think that the expectation on the employer and a quality workplace is higher than ever. So I think if you don't have that culture that exists, or you don't have that support system as an employer, and then you're gonna sink pretty quick.
I think we finally understood it, and I can tell you why.
we being CRS, Collective Roasting Solutions, or employers in general?
In general, like what's going on in the market, because I could see a lot of things, is that the people who had money and opening coffee shop are retiring. So the old school owners are retiring. You're getting the new blood, 34, 35, they just got money from somewhere. They're opening their cafe. They're putting the new millennial culture into the workplace. So we're seeing it, how it's progressing within the industry.
So there's a new standard of what they require as employers?
Yeah, 100%. So there's, as an employer, there's a new standard. Them, they were employees, so they understood it a little bit more. Of course, not everybody's perfect. You're going to find here and there people who will abuse it, no doubt about it. But majority of this old school culture is fading out of the city, is going somewhere else, or they're just retiring, selling their businesses and sitting down. So it's going to become more of an organic shift in the way we do things within the industry as well.
So you believe that the new generation of owners that's coming in is placing greater importance on workplace relations and having a more harmonious workplace?
I think as a general rule, yes.
Yes.
I would definitely say so, yeah.
Can you feel that happening here in Australia?
I can, definitely in the city. A lot more. Yeah, I found like that's
a downtown area for the American audience.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot more of a shift. I mean, rent is
crazy.
insane in Sydney. I find if you don't have a sustainable business and a very nurturing workplace that does have great staff retention and things like that, and is innovative, you are going to sink really quick. And we're seeing that with a lot of a lot of business on the outskirts of town are quickly closing down because they just can't keep up with the changing culture.
It's so sad.
They're fixed in their ways.
I mean, it's sad, but it's great on one perspective because we need cafes to be closing.
It's gonna give a benchmark now. You have to think twice before you open a coffee shop. So you're only gonna get
more than twice.
the good. Well, before you didn't have to think at all.
You just grab the money.
At least now,
$1 million and
at least now you can talk to a friend who owned a cafe before he will tell you, don't do it.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time
just let it
people,
go. It's a bad idea.
Invest the money in a house. If you've got access to $1 million, go and buy a couple of investment properties out the back of bumfuck.
Exactly.
And
that's
watch that grow.
This is the positive aspect of what's going on.
Yeah.
However, they are new business owners. They're new blood. They're young. They're this. So the word assertiveness is I can link it. As I said when I first started my business, if I knew more about how it works, or if I understood it a lot better, maybe we would have a much better communication built in the workplace since day one. Right? So not because you're new, you're good, you just want to give money and all that. This is not how you build it. Is you have to be assertive because they need to know what rights they have, and they need to know what expectation you have from them, and you need to know what expectation they have from you, right?
I have to ask you something right there. That's a really important point because a part of assertiveness is understanding where the boundaries are, right?
Yeah.
And knowing your rights is a part of those boundaries. You and I have experienced throughout the process of marketing this event that people have been cautious to let their employees know about this workshop because they're scared of what would come out on the other end if their employees attended these workshops and knew what their rights were.
Yeah.
And knew how they could become better at asking for what they deserve.
Yeah.
Right? which has just been a mind fuck for me, because like people don't want their employees to know about this assertiveness workshop because they think, oh, it's going to make their employees want more from them. That's not the case. When people know what their rights are, and you as an employer have nothing to hide because you're not trying to take from your employees, you want that, like you are running a legit business and you're not trying to fuck anybody over. Do you think that makes for a safer environment, or are more employers scared of that environment where their employees know what their rights are?
I think a lot more employees know what their rights are, but the problem is sometimes they know only their rights.
They don't know your rights as an employer.
Exactly, right. So it's
right.
There's a fine line between knowing just...
The heavens agree.
Yeah. and the same thing from our end, right, as running businesses, is that we sometimes only know what the rights for us, but we don't know what the right for them. So I'm not saying it has to be an open communication channel, right? So
that's hard work though, right?
It is hard work, but you have to babysit, they have to babysit, they have to speak up, you have to speak up. But this is the beautiful thing. Assertiveness is that if you don't click, at least you're aware of it without hard feeling.
Yeah.
At least you know what, dude, this is not the partnership.
Wow, we're just doing this live? Like right now? Firing me on
Hey, so Shane, we've got something to tell you. Sorry.
No, but
Jeez.
yeah, exactly. So, which is good because it makes both life easy. We understand when we see each other on the street, we can say hello or keep that respect going, talk good about each other, and keep it simple, right? So, and this is where I would really be happy if more and more people just come into it. Really, it's a great tool to have. And also, you know your power, you know how it fluctuates, you know how it works within the workplace. It teaches you to be a little bit more of a politician, a little bit more of where to put your knowledge as the power. It teaches you a lot of things, and hopefully we can get more people.
Yeah. Well, and the most important thing, and I know that we've all got stuff to do, so we'll wrap up in a second, but I think the most important part of this is assertiveness isn't something that's just for work. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, this is, it's for everything, right? Like, fuck, I wish I had relationship
very
assertiveness training when I was
Are we doing dishwashing today, or what's the deal?
I think everyone before they get married should have to take assertiveness training.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of training that's going to shift the way you live. Like it's going to.
It's in everything you do. Career, right? If your career is anything, you have to know how to be assertive.
It's a leadership skill.
Yeah.
Like it has a flow-on effect. You teach people, any of your employees assertiveness, you're training your future leaders. And
exactly.
Yeah, it will make you a better employer. It will make you a better employee.
And you'll have a more solid team. Like you'll have a team that fights for your boundaries as a business, and with competitors and with other people.
At the end of the day, you just need to think a little bit bigger and think about that company's performance overall means everybody needs to be happy, everybody needs to be productive, everybody needs to work together as one element. And we can have different ideas, but at least from the top down, we know the goals of the organization, we know the values of it. As long as these are communicated assertively, in a very assertive way, everybody know the value, we build it together, guys. So we all agree to it. I know you're not going to do bad by me, and you know I'm not going to do bad by you because the values are there. So everything has the ripple effect. So you need to have all these structure within the workplace first. So you have to structure it in a way. Not formal everything, but structure it that everybody been communicated what is it all about in a very nice way, in a very proper way, and understandable for everyone within the organization. And from there, don't be afraid for people to know more. Don't be afraid for your people to be better than you, because that will make you better. And don't be afraid to let them go, because the people who build legacies are the people that knows when to go. They can still be alive. That doesn't mean they died, but they left what they're doing, right? So all this has to come together to build, a much better culture and a company that has not just sustainable as in environment, but sustainable from a social perspective, sustainable from a financial perspective, and from an environment perspective.
Yeah, I love that. To finish, like, can you tell me an example, and you don't have to be very specific, but you can be if you want.
He's very specific.
That's why you love him.
I was just gonna say what's in his head.
When is a time in your life that you wish, in your career, that you wish that you had assertiveness training, and how would it change the outcome of something?
Wow.
Think about it too.
I'll have to say that there's a lot of examples of that, and to be honest, like, me being assertive as a person or as an employee has only really shifted in maybe the last 4 to 5 years, where I've had the strength to walk away from a business.
Confidence is a big role.
Confidence,
in it, right?
confidence is assertiveness. I mean, you got 3 big C's, right? You got confidence, clarity, so clear communication, and then the other C I can't remember, but I'm sure it's really good.
Did you say 3 or 4?
No, there's 3.
Oh, okay.
There's 3.
Confidence, clarity, and I was going to say something not
Communication.
appropriate.
Communication, sure. I mean, it all comes down to
That works.
But anyway, yeah, like, there's been times when I've personally been bullied, been abused, taken advantage of, worked crazy hours, tears have been shed, physical abuse at work, and it's just not just me being affected. It's also seeing other people being abused, other people being disrespected, and they don't have the power and the assertiveness to speak for themselves. But if I had the assertiveness, I could actually reach out and help them.
That's important, huh?
And that's a really, I feel internally just very, very upset that I didn't have the strength then to help someone else in a bad situation, So yeah, I mean, assertiveness, in my opinion, any workplace, any communication, any relationship, it's gonna turn the tables.
I love that. What about you?
Me?
Yeah.
Oof. I was trying to think about it.
Have you experienced situations where either you were passive or aggressive? Because I don't believe that you've not been one of those two.
I'm passive every day.
Yeah.
It's when he just doesn't answer his phone. That's passive.
That's passive aggressive. Do you find that there was a time where you wish, looking back in hindsight, that had you have had more assertiveness skills, that you could have moved through a situation differently?
I would say definitely yes. Just trying to think about an example on the top of my head to give it justice. Assertiveness, how to be very assertive. I don't know. I mean, the last 4 years that I really changed a lot. Actually, yes, I do. That's a good one.
It was very exciting.
That was a funny one though. I just did it somehow on purpose. It was really hilarious. And I was working at this company. I was doing the head roaster, doing some work, and then suddenly another head roaster come along. I'm like, okay, cool, no problem. He's been around for 12 years building another company.
I know exactly what this is.
And I'm like, yeah, no worries, why not? And then, suddenly after, a couple of months teaching him how to use Cropster, even though he built a 24-ton per week company, but he never used.
You're getting far too specific, and everybody in
but
Sydney.
But anyway, that's fine. So after a few months, and then I realized, and then I was like, okay, coming to work, are you doing dishes today?
Wow.
I'm like, I have no problem doing dishes. No. I don't care, right? I'm like, okay, that's strange. Okay, no problem. All right, I can do. Because I started bringing down a little bit barista, and then from a barista to a dishes. I'm like, okay.
What a great example.
I can do dishes. Fair enough. And then I did it for a bit. And the next time, hey, you're again there. I'm like, okay, I had enough. I'm like, I texted my friend who's my boss. And I was like, I think you should come here because I think I'm gonna walk away right now. And then he came like, hey, hold on.
That's where respect, like coming back to it. This is about respect. Go on.
Yeah, right. Like, hey, look,
This is disrespect.
dude, what's going on? Like, if you want me to do dishes, write it somewhere, put it
If you
somewhere.
want to fire me, just fucking fire
Yeah,
me.
or just let me know what is it that you want me to do
I know
ahead.
someone who's experiencing this exact same thing right now.
Yeah?
Their job role, barista, and then slowly, like, 1 or 2 days a week, they're on the floor. Then they're in the back doing the dishes. And it's just like, well, this shift hasn't been communicated to me, or at least not properly.
Yeah.
Then you feel devalued and like, am I not doing my job properly? If that's the
Wow.
case, why haven't you trained me up or taught me the correct way? And it's just like, yeah, it really messes
This is
with
passive aggressive leadership.
Yeah. And it was like, for me, like, I didn't care. I could walk away. I knew I had
And
the
you-
power.
Listen,
I knew
in
I have
Sydney,
enough.
you're going to get a job in half a second.
Yeah, but we're talking about back then. Yeah, I wasn't who I am today. Anyway, I texted him and said, look, this is what's going on. I said, I really don't care if I'm doing dishes. Just let me know. Then I understand what's going on. And then they did it without telling me again. I'm like, okay, well, you putting someone, hold on. So you putting someone who you know is a student and he's going to leave the industry within a year on the machine. And you're putting someone whose career and dedication is coffee on the dishes.
Is this?
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, oh, totally. Like,
Do you understand? You're
did
putting.
you have this conversation?
Nah. I just went
Okay.
there. It's like, hey
So
man,
you were
I need
passive.
to talk to you.
Yeah.
I opened the door. I say, hey, I think I need to talk to you. Are you putting me on the dishes because I'm an Arab? Just for fun.
Kind of
I mean,
joking.
And then he said, no.
Yeah,
It's like,
he's scared,
can we have a
he's
chat? And then I
Are
resigned.
you putting me on the dishes because I'm an Arab?
I was like, yeah.
motherfucker.
And then the guy next to is like, yeah, man, yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's funny because once you get the balls to be assertive, everyone around you wants to get assertive.
That was funny. But anyway, even my last shift, I was a dishwasher, and I went and I did it
But that's
anyway.
it's so
right?
disrespectful.
And you know what? Actually,
Yeah, but
I
you
enjoyed
chose.
it so
You
much.
chose to do it.
Yeah, that's
That's
fine.
the difference.
They told me you're on the dishes. That's fine. I will show up and do what I need to do because I do have a work ethics, right? So, and I do have, I still have respect to whoever employ you, and I'm not those people that I want to use my sick leave till the end of it or anything like that. I really don't care. And yeah, that whole scenario actually was funny. But sometimes I do things without thinking if I didn't understand being assertive, right?
No, and that's why I'm asking
Yeah.
you. Like back then, if you had
I don't know,
understood being assertive back
I just
then.
did it because you want to protect who you are, right? You want to protect yourself. Some people are really good at protecting themselves. Some people are not, right? And some people can take it a bit far.
You putting me on
Yeah.
dishes because I'm an Arab.
Yeah.
That's gold.
Yeah.
Did you really say
Yeah,
that?
I said that. I don't care. It's like, hey, listen, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm just messing around with
I
them.
know, but I think it's.
But then I could see, he's like, he was like, oh, sorry, man, just let it go.
Like, to wrap up, it's one of those things where if we can have employers that can communicate what they want openly and honestly, like if he had been able to come to you and say, this is the plan, we're bringing somebody else in, we don't think that there's any room for you, so you have a choice, either you can go on dishes. I mean, how the fuck do you take someone from roasting to dishes?
It's fine.
Well,
Not really. But
not really, it's not. Especially as what you're doing is trying to push that person out, which is passive aggressive.
Yeah, just let me know. Say, hey,
Just
look, we don't have room
have the
for
integrity
you.
to say to someone, hey, listen, we're bringing someone else in. This is what we want to do, and you should probably take the next month or two to find a new job.
Yeah, that's it.
That's assertive communication, but instead, too many people are doing this fuckery that isn't healthy for anyone because everyone feels undervalued by then.
But that's what I mean. The best part is they're not going to last long, and they didn't last long, and
They
they've
didn't.
lost a lot more,
Yeah.
and they are in deep financial
Shit.
problems, right? But hey, I walk away from it winner.
You have your integrity.
I learned a lot, and I had so many other friends, and I started my business after that,
Yeah.
And because I went through all this, so I understood where, I need to be better. I need to have a safer workplace. And I think from this angle, I started my company with a different mindset. That's all. So,
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
For sure. Thanks for this conversation, guys.
No, thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Hope
Great.
it was valuable.
I
Looking
think
forward
so.
to Saturday.
Yeah. I'm
9 to 4:30, right?
9 till 4:30.
Please go ahead, buy ticket.
Buy some tickets, and if you aren't living in Sydney and you would like to get access to it, this workshop is going to be available as an online course.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of people who expressed that they wish that they could come to this, but either are going to be working or they live in another country or whatnot. The assertiveness training is going to be the thing that shifts your career from being like everybody else to exceptionally different from everybody else. Whether you're a leader or an employee. If you're an employee, you're a future leader of something if you stick it out. But this will just make everybody's life better.
Or if you're just a human, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
pretty
need
much.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
My pleasure.